Welcome everybody to your second lecture for Word 203. I wanted to, first let me say, I wanted to present this in a format that you guys might find useful. This is being recorded using PresentationTube, which is a downloadable program that allows you to record yourself giving a presentation at the same time as your slides, as you can see. You might want to take advantage of this for your profession exploration presentation project, or you can take advantage of programs like Novio.com or Zentation.com. So keep that in mind. The link should be found on the prompt for the profession exploration presentation. But if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Today we are talking about you attitude and business culture, and hopefully you will have some sort of background on this after reading in your textbook. If you haven't gotten to the reading yet, please make sure to do that and then come back to this because I'll be building off of that. So, you attitude, as we'll talk about today, is a basic way to talk about the style of writing that is involved when we're dealing with business communication. It's a shorthand way to refer to it. Whereas and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a little bit, in academic writing, you usually focused on the subject or the topic of what you're writing about, and that should be the main focus of what you're doing. In business writing, what we try to do is we try to focus on the client or the audience or the prospective employer as a way to make sure that we are paying attention to what they need. So this is from the book, but this is useful to pay attention to. You attitude is a simple way of saying that all business writing is transactional. That is, it is designed to elicit a specific action from the reader. This is not a way to say that other writing types are not transactional, but the main focus of business writing is to get your audience to do something. So if I'm writing a persuasive speech, I want them to agree with me at the end of the speech. If I am putting together a resume, I want the prospective employer to hire me. That's basically what that comes down to. But when we're dealing with transactional writing, you also have emails where you're trying to get information. So you ask a question at the end of the email, or you have an internal report. Well, you might think of that as just informative, but what you're trying to do is to make sure that your team knows this information and can use it effectively. So it's something to pay attention to. Other types of writing are transactional, but you're going to want to focus on that in business writing. The other thing here is to pay attention to this. The you attitude also means the writer must identify the needs and desires of stakeholders and readers and decide which rhetorical strategies will best appeal to those needs. Right? So you're paying attention to what the audience needs. Okay, that's the goal when it comes to business writing. So to do this, there are 5 basic things you need to do. Number 1, always identify your audience and its needs. Know who you're writing to. If it's an email, it's the subject line, or the to line. Who are you writing to? If it's a speech, like our profession exploration presentation, know basically what kind of audience is going to be sitting there and paying attention to what you're doing. To put it in a little bit simpler terms, if I'm talking to my friends and I'm asking them to borrow 20 bucks, what am I going to do? I'm going to pay attention to which friend I'm asking. I might have one friend that's a little bit cheaper and likes to pay attention to debts. Still my friend, but everybody's got that friend. So if I'm trying to convince him to lend me 20 bucks, then my first goal will be to show him that I will be able to repay it soon. Okay, so I might mention that payday is Friday, or I might mention that I hope to get a quick turnaround. Okay, if I'm talking to a friend that's there to hang out with me, then I know that the goal is to spend time together. So if I'm borrowing $20, I want to make sure that he knows that the $20 is going to be used on a joint activity. So maybe we're going to spend $20 to buy pizza or to go see a movie. And so that's the way I'm going to frame that question. Can I borrow 20 bucks? I'll promise to pay you back by Friday. Or can I borrow 20 bucks? I want to get a pizza for us while we watch the game, or whatever. Okay? In order to do this, you want to think about what your audience already knows. So, for instance, if I'm talking about my friend that wants the money back soon, then he knows, hopefully, if he's my friend, that I have a job. So I let him know that payday is coming. I don't give him all the extra information about, I have a job, blah, 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 blah. He knows this. The same goes with, business communication. If I'm writing a resume or a cover letter, what does my audience know? They know about the job. They know more about the job than I do. So I don't need to fill them in on what's in the job description or the job advertisement. I just need to let them know how I match it. Okay? So you want to think about what your audience already knows and use that to help you reach what they need. Okay? So you're also going to adjust your tone and language to match the audience. One way to think about this is if I'm talking to my priest, okay, I'm going to be using a different type of address than I would with my friend. Same thing goes with business audiences or readers or listeners to business presentations. They're going to be different. They're going to demand different things. So if I'm pitching a project to a tech startup, I might be a little less formal and my language will be more jargony. I'll be using terms from computer science or things that they're going to be familiar with. But if I'm making the same type of pitch to a bank to try to fund my thing instead of going to a startup, then I'm going to use financial terms. Okay, so you want to pay attention to what they know, and part of that is paying attention to what kind of language and tone will work best for them. So if I'm presenting to a startup, I might be a little bit looser, more informal. If I'm presenting to a bank, then I'm going to be much more formal and by the book. Okay, same thing goes with documents, the way you present them, the way they're laid out, the way they're designed. Okay, and then professionalism is always required. That's number 4. This goes without saying. We'll talk about what professionalism basically means when we're talking about business communication, but this is something to keep in mind. You know what's professional and what's not, and if you don't, it's kind of a gut instinct. Make sure that you're keeping it focused on the business or on the transaction or what you're at the subject of your writing, and you should be fine. And then number 5 is proofread, and this goes for presentation slides, this goes for resumes, this goes for the way you speak. And you can't really proofread as you go along, but you can make sure that you don't stick your foot in your mouth by rehearsing what you're going to say. Basic reason why you need to proofread is you don't know what your audience is going to find off-putting. And I'm sure you've all had a teacher that found comma splices to be the worst thing ever, or really got stuck on a word choice and couldn't really get past it. You want to make sure that you're not misspelling things or anything like that, because 1, it makes you look unprofessional, and 2, you don't know what your audience is going to find distracting. Okay, so this is something. This is something from an employer from Slate.com. She wrote for Slate.com, and it's something to help you think about new attitude. So from the perspective of an employer looking for applicants for an internship, first off, she says, explain how selecting you will benefit me. Not how it will help you, but how it will benefit me, the employer. This is where candidates often get it totally backwards. So here we see, I frequently read lines like, I'm applying for this paid internship because I think working at Slate would be highly beneficial for me. Okay? That's great. It's great that it'll be beneficial for you, but it doesn't matter to your audience. And especially when you're talking about a resume or a cover letter, it's not going to matter to them. The fact of the matter is there will be other people applying for this job, even if it's the most obscure thing. And so they also will find it beneficial to work there, either because of the paycheck or for whatever other reason. So what you want to do is make sure that you keep the focus on why they should be interested in you, not why you're interested in them. Okay? So to go to the next point, you can keep reading that if you choose. Explain to me how choosing you will solve my problem. And here that problem is finding a good job applicant. But you can also think about this in terms of your ISR. How will it solve the problem of your group needing to know something, or the formal executive proposal, how will it solve the marketing problems for that nonprofit that you've chosen. Okay, so how will it help solve my problem? So looking at this, at the very bottom there, that second bullet point, from my editorial experience as managing editor of 34th Street Magazine here at Penn, to my experience in news and culture blogging at, and I'm not even going to try this, last summer, I've picked up the tools I need to perform as a Slatist intern with excellence. And I don't know why that's Slatist instead of Slate intern. There's an unprofessional typo of my own. So here you can see this is framed for the audience, for the HR director at Slate that's going to be deciding on the intern positions. Okay. So if we look at it in terms of the rhetorical situation or the rhetorical triangle, and I'm hoping that in your composition and communication 1 and 2 classes, you've encountered this. If you haven't, then just do a quick Google search and it'll kind of explain what's going on here. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer questions. So the rhetorical situation here, I'll explain briefly, but you might want to find more information. It's basically a way to look at all writing. Okay, all writing needs to pay attention to who the audience is. All writing needs to pay attention to who you are, the writer or the speaker. And all writing needs to pay attention to the subject, obviously. So when you're thinking about your resume, you're the person applying. It's about you, okay? The subject is kind of about you, but it's mainly about your qualifications, okay? But in business writing, all of this focus is on the audience, not on the speaker. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what you write. I mean, it matters, but the focus should be on their needs. So why do you matter as a writer? Well, you only matter in so much as they care. So you need to make sure that they understand why you matter. The subject, your qualifications, they only matter in how they fit their job description. Okay? So when you're thinking about business writing, you want to think about it in terms of this rhetorical triangle. The purpose is always to meet the needs of the audience. Okay? Now, when you think about the rhetorical situation in terms of the needs of other types of writing, you have the speaker and writer are the focus of personal email or social media. I get on Twitter to let people know what I think about different things. Not often am I getting on Facebook or whatever to talk about things that don't matter to me, for one thing. And I'm not going to get on there to spread news that often. I'm usually going on to social media to let people know what I think, my opinion. So the focus is on the speaker or the writer. Same with personal email. All right. Subject and topic, all right, is the focus of the academic communication. By that I mean both presentations and essays. So when you're writing an essay, your purpose is to explore this topic, to make an argument about this subject. Okay, that's where the thesis statement comes in. But when you're looking at business writing, business communication, again, our focus is mainly on the reader and the audience. So when we look at this, and let me go back real quick. When we look at you attitude, you want to focus on this. So part of that, and this is another little list to help you through this. This is kind of how to write professionally, okay? But also how to keep a you attitude. So with you attitude, you want to focus on the audience's needs. And then the next step to make it a business communication, effective business communication, is to keep it professional. Because like I said, you can have you attitude in non-business writing communication. So in order to do that, you have a couple things to keep in mind. You want to be pointed. So by that I mean avoid filler. So that means nominalizations, as your book says, okay, because that adds extra words. You want to avoid passive sentences, okay? And that's all grammatical points. But in addition, you want to pay attention to what the audience knows, so you don't add extra information that they already know. They don't care, okay? Business communication is about effective writing and quick and concise writing. It's not about exploring what's going on, okay? So for instance, here, if I'm keeping a diary or a blog, then I'm going to explore an issue. just for the heck of it. Just see what I think about a movie or what I think about what happened in the day. All right, I might write specifically for that, just to explore. Doesn't matter in business communication. You want to focus on getting your point across as quickly and effectively as possible, okay? And then the other part of this is use active verbs. Everybody's heard this with resumes. You want to make sure that you're using the specific action words instead of a lot of passive voice or be verbs, okay? If you need a refresher on this, refer to your textbook, but I'm happy to talk about this in more detail in the resume PowerPoint. Let me know through email, and I'll expand on that a little bit more next week. But you want to be very pointed, meaning right to the specific idea that you're trying to get across. You also want to be professional, avoid slang, use appropriate diction, okay, word choice, okay, and avoid being overly familiar. And as an example, my wife works for an international nonprofit here in Lexington, and she has told me repeatedly about these ridiculous emails that come in where someone is complaining about something that's happened on their website or has an idea for what can happen, what's the next step to take in their developmental plan, but they end their emails signed love or yours forever or whatever, and it's a ridiculous way to end an email because it's being overly familiar. You don't know this person necessarily, and if you do know, you want to keep it professional, okay? So even if you're cracking jokes, make sure that you are keeping it focused on a professional idea and not being best friends with this person. Okay, even if I know someone at a company I'm making a proposal to, I'm still going to be proposing to the company, not to that person. Okay, you want it to be pertinent, and I've already talked about this in terms of pointed. Get to your point, but make the relevance of your message. Make clear the relevance of your message to the intended audience. So you want to keep focused on the message or what you want to talk about. Okay, but you also want to make it clear why this matters to the audience. Okay. And then purposeful, organize your writing to clarify your meaning. We'll talk about this a little bit more when we come to some of the different types of writing, but one thing to do is to be careful about your paragraph choices. You want to make sure that you've organized your paragraphs so that it's clear what each paragraph is about. And this is important in the cover letter, but it'll become important in the ISR, the individual short report, and the group proposal. Okay, and we'll talk about how to organize your writing using subheadings and stuff like that later on. And then you also want it polished. Watch your grammar, spelling, and punctuation errors. We'll talk a lot about GSP errors, but this is something that's very important, especially in your resume and cover letter. You want to make a first impression, and one way to do that is make sure it's polished to within an inch of its life. Make sure, go over it 3 or 4 times. Have your friend look at it. Make sure there are no typos. Make sure that everything's lined up and designed well. Okay? It's more important than you might think. All right. So we're going to talk about this ethical business communication real quick, but I want to mention that we will come back to this, especially with the individual short report and the group proposal. I wanted to mention this real quick because it's useful as a beginning topic. So when we talk about ethical business communication, we're talking mainly about 2 different theories of business ethics. And if you're not a business major, which a lot of you aren't, that's fine. This is something that's still useful to keep in mind, whether you're talking about animal science or med school or whatever. It's just you tend to lean one way or the other when it comes to that. With business school, they try to figure it out on both sides. So you have shareholder theory, which is a Milton Friedman theory from 1970, where the way to look at the ethical business choices is at bottom line. It doesn't matter if you're, and the one negative way to look at this is it doesn't matter if your shoes are produced in a sweatshop in Asia, you're making a profit for your owners or your shareholders, okay, people that have shares in the company in terms of the stock market. That's a negative way to look at it. The other way to look at it is you get the best deals you can so that you can make the most profit for your company. All right. So one way to, and Friedman argued that public projects, you know, roads, bridges, Social Security, all this sort of stuff is unethical in terms of shareholder theory because it takes away from the public profit, or from the profit for the shareholders, from the bottom line. Okay. You also have stakeholder theory. That's the opposite. So Friedman, not Friedman, Friedman wrote this in directly against shareholder theory. Stakeholder theory says everything that the company touches should make an impact on ethical decisions. So responsibility is due to all the entities that its action touches. That means if I am creating a new basketball, okay, then if I'm Nike and I'm trying to sell this new basketball, then I'm going to think about all the children playing with the basketball. I'm going to think about the schools that are buying these basketballs. I'm going to think about the people that are supplying me rubber. I'm going to think about the people shipping and selling these basketballs. Okay. And this is kind of an exhausting theory because it means that, wherever your product goes, it's going to impact the ethical decisions that you have to make. And it can be very hard to figure out. Okay. It's a very nice theory, and one that, honestly, if I speak truthfully, I tend to lean more towards stakeholder theory than to shareholder theory. But it can be exhausting and it can be problematic. Okay. So what it's basically saying with stakeholder theory is that you have to pay attention to the impact that your company is making, not just the profit, but the impact. All right. So I have a couple examples for you. So shareholder theory, you can think about it in terms of Apple's pursuit of profit and well-designed technology. Apple products do not work well with other platforms. Well, they've started to lately, but for a long time, Android and Apple did not work well together. If you tried to use an app from one thing on a different device, or tried to link to devices, it didn't work well. Microsoft and Apple often don't get along either. So one way to think of that is that Apple is cornering a market and creating something that will generate profit for them, okay, and not relying on other technology. They're mainly worried about their bottom line. As a result, they focused on well-designed products, which is why the iPhone and the iPad and all these different products have done so well. It's because they're well-designed and they make a ton of profit for this company. Okay, but they're not paying attention necessarily to the conditions of where the iPhone is made until it's brought to national attention, and then maybe they'll talk about it. But they're mainly focused on the profit. The other way to look at this is that BP was also focused on the profit until they were forced not to be. Now you see this with a lot of oil companies where they focus on showing people how they are working on things other than oil, because oil is kind of a bad product at this point and something that people don't think well of. So BP's response to the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, and I think it was 2010, maybe 2012, I can't remember exactly. When that spill happened, BP went into response mode, and their response was to do a lot to help with the environmental cleanup. They did a lot to work with the fishermen whose profits dipped when the oil killed off their fish. Okay, and some of this was legally decided, like through the court system, but they also worked to do a better job of showing how their deep water drilling is impacting the environment, and not only the environment but the communities that rely on BP. Okay, so there's a lot more attention paid in their PR moves to this wide range of focus. Okay, so I'm going to skip past this because I got on a little bit longer than I thought. But the ethical business communication stuff, pay attention to this in your book, but we'll come back to it as we go along. So the last thing I want to talk about today is memos, and you might think, what the heck? I'm not writing many memos, but as we'll get to, email format is directly drawn from what's considered the memo genre or the memo style of writing. Okay, so when you're dealing with memos, again, we're talking about you attitude. So who is your audience? Write in the first person, I or we, but maintain you attitude, okay? Because this is a memo is designed to let people know what's going on with you or with your subdivision or with your topic, okay? So it's talking about what you found out or where you're going. So you want to talk in first person, but you want to keep in mind what your audience knows and what they need to know, okay? You want to write into a direct and concise style. Memos do not run on. If a memo goes more than 2 pages, take another look. Maybe you can cut some unimportant topics or unimportant information. All right. Make sure your subject is focused and immediately apparent. Okay, because memos, when memos were used more often, you would get a stack of them, and you would go through to kind of prioritize. Well, you want to make sure that the person can prioritize so they can focus on what they need to, and only pay attention to the memos that are unimportant when they have time. Okay, and the reason this is important to you is because you want a quick reaction from the people that need to give you one, and you want people's focus. So if they need to work on something else, your memo should make clear that they can come back to your topic later on. Right? You want to summarize the facts and analyze pertinent data and information. So you're not giving a whole report. You're just giving the bare bones so that they can move forward. If they have questions, they can ask. Okay? And then at the end of your memo, you want to make a recommendation and support it. All right? So what should be done, or what are you going to do, and why? Okay? So if we look at this, this is kind of hard for you to see. Well, maybe it's not, but this is from your textbook. So let's look at this a little bit closer. This is a sample memo. So here at the top, we have to, from, subject, date. Does this look familiar at all? This is exactly what an email looks like. Electronic mail is used now for a lot of types of communication, but when it first came in to use, it was used primarily within businesses as a way to communicate in memo format without it being, without printing off reams of paper. All right. So when you're doing this, you always want the to, okay, make it very clear. Make sure it's a from that is understandable. Okay. The subject. A lot of people, when they first start writing professional emails or business emails, can spend time. I know when I first was writing to people, I would focus on this. What kind of subject is it? Just make sure it gets the general idea across. This is another choke point, as in a way for someone to prioritize. So they understand that this is about group information and client request. So if I'm not ready to deal with that, then I will save this for later. Okay? And then the date, just so, because memos tend to deal with something in the immediate present, you want to make sure that people know when something's past due. All right. In your introductory paragraph, you provide background information and purpose. So why are you paying attention to this memo? Okay. And then when you move on, your body paragraphs are explaining the purpose in minimum detail. All right. Explaining why they should pay attention, or why this is what you're looking for. Okay. And concluding paragraph establishes goodwill with the audience. So a salutation at the end, and also reiterates important points. This is often where your recommendation comes in. Okay. Or if you are writing an email, then where you ask questions, or where you look for information, or you give the audience a reason to respond. Okay, so when you talk about recommendations, one thing to think about is most often recommendations these days, at least in email format, comes in the form of looking for a response. Okay, even if it is just let me know if you got this, or let me know if you need more information, that's still letting them know information and then giving them a chance to respond. Okay, remember that transactional idea that comes with you attitude. All right, so the professional email, like I said, is just electronic memos for the modern office. All right, so here are some bad examples. So, for example, did I miss anything important into class today? This is an email exchange, actually. All right, so this is, and you all know, it's a ridiculous email exchange. It's something that if you're not paying attention, you might do with your friends, but not necessarily with your professor, as these are, or with a client if you are writing for a business situation. But look at how unprofessional this looks. There's no capitalization, okay? All right. and today is a misspelling. I mean, it makes sense, but it's a misspelling. So this comes across as unprofessional. For one thing, it does not pay attention to the audience. Okay, what does the audience need? This isn't anything about the audience needs. This is about what the student needs. Okay, it also shows a lack of care for paying attention to the details. Okay, such as capitalization, even though it might not seem like an important detail to you, to use slang terms or stuff like that, then just keep in mind who your audience is, okay? And then here, this is a response that, again, pays specific, pays specific attention to the needs of the writer, not the receiver, okay? So again here, okay, so I'm having a bit of trouble closing the paper, and I realize I am quite late already, but maybe I can just fix it for the end of the semester, have you take it now, or I can revise it now. So this is basically just stream of consciousness. It's what the person was thinking. What you want to think about when you're thinking about these is that they are, emails are memos. So you still, ideally, will have an introductory paragraph that provides background information and purpose, and then body paragraphs that provide more information, okay? And then a concluding paragraph. Now, an email, which is pretty short sometimes, this can all come together in one paragraph or in two paragraphs, but you still want that basic format. So here, this is some background information, but it's focused on the student. I'm having a bit of trouble closing the paper, all right? This is some additional information, but again, it's focused on the student. So you just want to turn this and make it you attitude. So instead of saying, I'm having a bit of trouble closing the paper, let the teacher know why this matters to them. Okay, I'm going to have trouble turning this in on time. Okay, I'm having trouble finishing it. Here are my questions. Okay, and that's all it takes. You're letting the teacher know why this matters to them and how they can help you. All right, so you're getting into specifics, but not not extraneous stuff. And you got to organize so that there is an introductory paragraph where the purpose is made clear, where the purpose is explained a little bit more, and then in the concluding remarks, what you're looking for as far as questions or recommendations for what can be done, and then a salutation or a sign-off. Okay, not a salutation, but a sign-off. So here we have all of that stuff, but again, this is not as much focused on the writer, but it's ridiculous. So, hey, all right, fine. That's not quite a professional salutation, right? It's not paying attention to who the audience is. The audience is your teacher, not your friend, okay? And I'm saying all this, I'm not trying to say you have to be super formal when you email me, but you want to pay attention to some things like this. Sorry I missed class today. Okay, again, we have a typo. All right. This does, however, let this teacher know what the purpose is. I woke up sick and stuff. I won't go into details, but it was gross. This is extra information that the teacher does not need, right? This is extra information that your audience doesn't need if you're writing this for business purposes. I'd appreciate you sending me the notes for the important stuff in class. This is a request, okay, which is appropriate in an email, but important stuff in class is very broad. What are you looking for? Are you looking for notes? Are you looking for a PowerPoint presentation? Would it be more appropriate for you to come talk to me? Do you want to offer options? Okay, these are things that might be useful. Okay, all right, peace. Also, when's the paper due? This, again, is, if this is part of the purpose for writing the email, then include it up here. Okay, I'm sorry I missed class. I want to know how I can find information and when the paper's due if you get a chance. Okay, it's just something to keep in mind. Now here, and I'm not going to go into detail, but here we have a well-written email. Okay, that's written like a memo. Okay, I'm writing with some great news. Here's the focus on Dr. Lee. All right, as far as you attitude, not just only focused on Dr. Lee, but I'm writing with some great news. Okay, so this is the purpose. Great news. Now finalized for the Global Leaders Program. Okay, this is background information 2 letters of recommendation will speak to the specific qualities of the nominee. Would you be willing to write one of these letters for me? Boom. Perfect purpose right there in the beginning. It's clear to the reader why this matters. Okay, this is the same thing that would work in a business context if you were writing to see if you could pitch a project, or if you were writing to see if a client needed any extra help from you or whatever. Okay. I'm attaching the recommender form that the program sent to me. Again, this is focused on what the reader needs. Not what the writer needs, but what the reader needs. Okay. This is all information that will help him do this, complete this purpose. Okay. If you will agree to write this letter, I can pick it up from you in an envelope with your signature across the back flap, so making it clear what's gonna need to be done. The due date is June 1st. So here we have, and this, as you can see, is an older thing, but this is useful nonetheless. Thank you very much for considering this request. I will be sure to keep you posted as to the nomination process. Okay? So this should be clear as to what's going on here. It also includes the salutation, okay? A professional salutation, we'll get into this when we talk about cover letters, but the professional salutation uses the colon instead of a comma. A comma is a familiar way to do a salutation. And then a closing, okay? We have who it's to, we have from, obviously you need that sort of stuff, but a really clear subject, letter of recommendation, that's what this is about, okay? And a clear designation of what's attached, okay? Now, you'll notice, and this is just something to pay attention to, that these are clear documents, but you know what it's about. Rubio 2007, I get a sense that this is the resume, okay? Rubio WS, well, this is summary of the work that I did in your writing course. It's probably writing sample, okay? And G5GL rec doc, well, that's definitely the recommendation form. Okay, so there's nothing in here that just says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because that's a little bit confusing. Okay. If you have any questions about this, please let me know by email or whatever works for you. But that's a basic outline of what's going on with the memo genre and, by extension, the email genre. What I'm looking for when you email me is for you to keep it professional, keep it focused on what kind of transaction you're looking for. Okay, so if you're looking for information from me, just let me know. If you are looking for me to do something to make something clear, or to write you a letter recommendation as it says in here, just let me know. Okay, you need to make clear that transaction, that's the purpose, okay, and then give information that'll help make that purpose accomplishable. So something that can help make that happen, all right? And then you conclude with, you know, making sure that you work with the audience and try to create a relationship, but also so that you can, make it clear, once again, what's the next step that the person can do. Okay. That's the end of this lecture. I'll go ahead and let you know here, but I'm also going to mention it in announcement on Canvas. I'm not going to record a job search lecture. I was trying to put one together for a while, but then I realized a lot of you probably know how to do that, how to search for job advertisements on your own. If you need help, please let me know. But I would recommend that if you're looking for a place to start, go to either Indeed.com, which is probably the best website for job advertisements, or Monster.com. But you can also, as a member of the University of Kentucky, visit the Stuckert's Career Center, either in person if you're on campus, or go to their website, and they'll have some job postings too, especially for people that are looking for UK grads. So that's something to keep in mind. Let me know if you have any questions about any of the material in here or anything that we've done for class or any of the stuff online. And I'll look forward to talking to you guys again, either through a lecture or through email. Take care and have a good day.